Alabama football practice starts on Wednesday, and here we are right at the end of Jimmy Stein's world famous roster countdown.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson from the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. And Jimmy Stein from Bama Online. That's him. Thanks for making us your first or second listen every single day. You everydayers are the absolute best. But we also want to welcome in any new listeners and watchers. Love you guys. Welcome to the channel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel as well. Jimmy, we've talked a lot of recruiting in the previous yesterday's podcast, so would love for you to check that out. Today, we're going to get right back into your countdown because we've got some big names, and I mean that literally and figuratively. And Jaeden Roberts is where we're going to start. This guy, I don't know anybody maybe outside of Jalen Milroe who's improved more. Jaeden Roberts, people forget. I mean, you look at him now because he looks like he's out of the Marvel universe. And you think, oh, well, this guy's been a stud ever since he got there. He redshirted. He redshirted in 2021, played in 2022, or was it redshirt in 22? I'm trying to.
No, you're right. Redshirt in 21.
He played in 22.
Played very little in 22.
He played sparingly. He played against Vanderbilt, Austin Peay, and Kansas State, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
And so now last year, all of a sudden it seemed like, we talk about this all the time. The light came on, right? I mean, we've been talking about that with some guys like a Quay Russaw or Quindarius Robinson. Is the light going to come on? And my goodness, it came on. And this guy was an absolute beast last year. He is a humongous human being. He really does. He looks, he's got a lot of DJ Fluker-esque qualities. And I think this is probably going to end up being his last year, Jimmy. I mean, he could come back. He could come back because he redshirted. But I think this will end up being his last year, don't you?
Very possible, and I think it's amazing that we're even discussing that. But, yeah, it is very possible that he's going to play his way into the upper echelon in the NFL draft after this year. I do this roster ranking every year, and the cool thing now that we've got, a couple of years of doing this, the cool thing now, we can look back and see players moving up and down, right? And here I have Jaden Roberts as the 8th best player on this Alabama football team this fall, the 8th best player. 1 year ago today, when I did this prior to the 2023 season, he was the number 58 player. He moved up 50 spots in one year. And you could say, well, you had him ranked too low. Well, I wasn't a soothsayer. That's just, he literally was like the third option, at guard once players went down. I mean, you got to remember Darian Dalcourt was starting at right guard last year, not playing well, but sort of, we kind of knew what he was, sort of limited, not a great player, but a good player that knew the assignments and knew where to be and what to do. He just wasn't a great football player. That's why he went undrafted. But Dalcourt got hurt. And when he got hurt, next man up was Terrence Ferguson. And TJ was a highly regarded, highly recruited guy that they were counting on. But, he wasn't that great either at Alabama last year. He wasn't great. And then he got hurt. And now you're down to now what are we going to do? And they stick in Jaeden Roberts, who they felt, I know from inside the staff, they felt this guy's good, but he's probably still a year away. Well, once he got 1 or 2 games under his feet, he was just a couple of weeks away. I mean, all he really needed to improve dramatically and quickly was the game experience, because by the end of the year, the offensive line was really good and was a team strength by the end of the year. And in large part, that was due to the emergence of Jaeden Roberts, who absolutely played fantastic, particularly for a brand new starter. Now, he was a project. I like how Luke mentioned DJ Fluker earlier. Fluke was another guy that people don't think of now as a project, but he was absolutely a project when they signed him out of Foley High School. During his redshirt year, he's probably one of the worst players on the team. Ask DJ. Ask any coach that was on that staff. DJ was just not anywhere near ready to play as a true freshman. But year 2, he was good enough to get out there, and he did okay. And then in year 3, he became the fluke we all know as a dominant, fantastic player, kind of the guy we're seeing now in Jaeden Roberts. I think Jaden is basically just a year behind Fluker's development arc. He's just 1 year behind that. And hey, that's to be expected. Jaden Roberts was not a 5-star recruited by everybody in the country. If y'all remember, he flipped to Alabama from Auburn, even though he's from Houston, Texas. He's not was not one of these typical Saban type offensive tackle prospects. He's just was a project all along. They knew they would have to work with, and hey, the light comes on when it comes on. And thankfully for Alabama, it came on mid-season last year, and now we have him ranked as the 8th best player on this team.
You know, you brought up DJ Fluker, and I know we're staying more in the now than the past, but here's a picture of me and my brother with DJ Fluker in 2008 at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. And yeah, boy, I was still chunky then, apparently. And here's a picture of my hand at 6'5", 240-ish against DJ Fluker's hand. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
You know what's also ridiculous? I'm crazy. I can get this wrong so much. But if you told me that was a picture of you with Jaden Roberts, I'd go, yeah, that's Jaden. I mean, like, don't they look alike? To me, they look a lot
really
alike.
They do, yeah.
They look alike, and they're identically built from the barrel chest. I mean, they look a lot. I think to me, this has been, and I've been comparing Jaden Roberts to Fluke early on with the connotation that Fluker was a highly recruited 5-star type guy, and Jaden Roberts lesser recruited. But to me, as players, their skill sets, their temperament on and off the field, you'd swear these two were brothers. I mean, they're a lot alike. They're teddy bears off the field. They're monsters on the field. Just completely different personality once the game starts. But just the gentle giants off the field, nice guy, tries hard academically, does well. He's a gump. Fluke's a gump. Jaden Roberts is a gump. Fluke was a tackle at Alabama, but played guard in the NFL. Roberts a little bit ahead of that. He's a guard at Alabama. Is going to be a guard in the NFL, but really it's because him and Fluke just have really similar games. And again, Fluker was the 11th pick in the draft. I'm not saying that Jaden Roberts is going to be the 11th pick. Again, I think he's a little behind Fluker, but I do believe that Jaden Roberts will be a highly drafted player, either after this season or after next season.
This next one we're going to talk about, this guy excites everybody. There's no doubt about it. But I want to tell you about Ibotta. Look, I know I've got a live read, and I'm going to do the live read, I promise you. But I've got the Ibotta app right here on my phone, right there. I use it all the time. I love it. It's been awesome. You know, just making a little bit of money back. What does that hurt? On sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids, all that stuff. You probably bought a ton of that this summer. You don't want to stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all that stuff. Look, it's also barbecue season and tailgating season. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. So you won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. How about that? It's time you join the over 50 million users. And if it weren't for me, that'd only be 49,999,000 who use Ibotta to earn cash every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibotta using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. You'll get $5 to start out with. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. You will absolutely love Ibotta. I promise you that. Now, here's another one that I'm very excited about, and that's Factor. Man, I'm telling you this. I'm excited. I'm going to try this with all the warm, sunny days. And you know, you still want to get out there, and you don't really want to have this messy dad bod. You want to get ready to rock and roll. Fuel up with Factor. No prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time to end up the summer and get into football season so you can put on your lucky pants for the Alabama game. And there's a menu of chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor is fresh, it's never frozen, and they're dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy a great tasting meal. There are 35 different meals with over 60 add-ons to choose from every single week, and you'll always have new flavors to explore. Absolutely awesome. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced, whatever you want. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. That's factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com. You will love this. I mean, I'm telling you, Factor is going to be a thing. A guy who probably doesn't need Factor because he's already a machine, and that's Jihaad Campbell. Absolutely fantastic player. I think, speaking of guys who the light came on for last year, it really came on for him. 66 total tackles last year, including 4 for a loss, and he only had half a sack, which seems a little odd to say. I mean, he did add 3 quarterback pressures and 3 pass breakups. He intercepted a pass. He also had maybe 2 of the biggest fumble recovery. I'd say the 2 biggest fumble recoveries of the year. I mean, the one against Tennessee on the sack late in the game that he returned for a touchdown, and then he recovered the fumble on the muff punt against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, which was absolutely enormous. So I think he had the two of the biggest defensive plays of the year, Jimmy.
He is impactful. I mean, if my list here, we have Jihad as the 7th best player on this football team. If this list was more of a prediction, hey, Jimmy, how is 2024 going to play out? Who's going to be the best players on the team? Just predict it. Jihad would be higher. But I still want my ranking to be a little bit more evidence-based, based on what we've seen and what they've earned on the field. So I have him at 7, though. Was the 7th best player on the team. Is saying a lot for a team that's largely recruited by Nick Saban. Jihad is impactful. He is – I think the NFL scouts are just going to love this guy because if you made like a checklist of what they're looking for in an off-ball linebacker – you don't just check every box with Jihad. You put an A+ in every box. I mean, his size, his range, his wingspan, his range, the fact that, look at his skill set. He can rush the passer. He was actually rated a 5-star as an edge prospect coming out of high school. So he's a pass rusher. He's good against the pass. And Luke noted the interception. He's good against the pass. He causes fumbles. He's there scoring a touchdown on the strip sack that Dallas Turner when he sacked the Tennessee quarterback. Was it Turner or Braswell? That's a good question. I know Jihad picked it up and scored, but Turner or Braswell? I
thought it was Braswell.
I think it is Braswell. I think it is. I said that's why I caught myself. I'm like, no, I think that was Braz, not Dallas. So easy to think it's Dallas.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. That's why I didn't say that to begin with, because when Chris Braswell sacked the quarterback, I was like, ooh, was it Dallas Turner? And then I was like, nah, but I'm not going to mess up.
I think it is Braz. But anyway, Jihad picked it up and scored. Jihad was actually the National Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against Tennessee. So this is an award-winning guy's already created a lot of hype for himself. The NFL is going to love this guy. For him, it's just a matter of staying healthy for the entirety of the season, putting up consistent numbers and being a consistent dominating presence. But boy, when he's out there, he's a big play waiting to happen, which is exactly what you want in a front 7 guy, right? He's a disruptor, and that's Jihad. And again, anything you ask him to do, he can do. He can cover tight ends and backs and man coverage. He can drop into zone coverage. He can play the run. He can pursue ball carriers. He can get after the quarterback. I mean, everything you want to do, Jihad can do. He's still a young player, guys. I mean, this is a junior, but he's a true junior. Did not redshirt, played a lot of special teams his freshman year at Alabama. Last year 2, you hope a guy like that moves into the starting lineup. He did. And now he forms this duo with Deontay Lawson inside. We hadn't even got to Lawson on the countdown, which shows how high he is. I think with Jihaad Campbell being the 7th best player on the team and Lawson being even higher than that, this is one of the best inside linebacker duos in college football. I doubt there's a better one. And the NFL is just going to love Jihaad Campbell. I don't think he's played like a first-round pick yet. We're going to see that all year. I think we're going to see a first-round pick. Now, the NFL doesn't typically take inside linebackers, that high. But I think Jihaad will be an exception to their rule because, again, they don't normally get inside linebackers that have his length. I mean, this is a legit 6'3" guy.
He was number 30. He swapped over to number 11. And the first thing I thought of is he kind of seems like a hybrid between Dante Hightower and Lemansky Hall, who were number 30 and number 11, respectively. He seems like the meshing of those two.
Remember Salim Rashid?
I was going to say Salim Rashid was number 11.
He was number 11. Now, but Salim was a fast but sort of stiff, and
Yeah,
I think he was never going to do really well in coverage. Jihaad, amazingly, is bigger.
He's bigger
than Salim and less stiff.
Do you remember Jihaad Rashid, who was very highly recruited, ended up going to Duke? He was like Alabama Player of the Year.
Yeah, fullback.
Yep, that's right.
People listening to the show are like, a fullback? Are they talking about Canadian football? What's that?
Rugby. By the way, watching the Olympics, we were all watching rugby, and like my kids were like, we were all into it, and we were like, what does that mean? I was like, I don't know, but something happened. Like, I was like, I think this is a cross between soccer and football, and Lord knows I don't know how any of the rules go. They got to touch the ball down in the end zone. I don't know what's happening. And then, the women went out there, and they were just, I was like, I want none of that.
Yeah,
Have you ever been to a live?
I don't like saying you don't want that smoke. I don't like saying it, but it's very relevant.
It doesn't.
When you're watching the women play rugby. You don't want that smoke.
And here's the other thing. Like, I've been to a live rugby game, and the first thing I thought of, everybody on the field and most of the people watching could beat the heck out of me. And so I don't want to be here. I felt threatened. I was triggered being just in attendance.
I don't want to stereotype, but I get the feeling at rugby matches, there's lots of fights in the stands.
Probably. And, then they all go buy a beer afterwards or something. It's weird. Anyway, Jimmy, next on your countdown, a punter? Yes, it is going to be a punter next on his countdown, but I need to tell you about FanDuel because FanDuel is the absolute best. FanDuel, it's just awesome. And look, I know that right now sports aren't sportsing like you want them to. And I love them so much, I never want them to stop. And the playoffs are pretty much done. Major League Baseball sort of in its weird gray area. But I got a way to make it fun for y'all. That's FanDuel. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something forever about it every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and make the most out of your summer. Because FanDuel, of course, is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This is both thrilling and terrifying that James Burnip is here on your list, ahead of Jihaad Campbell, ahead of Jaeden Roberts.
Yep.
I think it's great to have a punter that is listed so highly, that is so highly regarded. Because a punter is kind of like a lawyer, Jimmy. Everybody hates him until you need one, right? You know this as a former lawyer. Or I guess you're still a lawyer. I don't know. Legally, I can't say that.
To be honest, I don't even know.
Well, James Burnip knows that he's a punter. And this is a guy that has really come on. It speaks volumes about his improvement moving this far up in your list. But it is also scary that he could be that important to this team. In the end, I think if you were to re-rank this team at the end of the season, he would be in your 20s. Not because James Burnip isn't going to be important, but because I think everybody else will be moving up notches. At least that's my hope.
Well, I don't agree with that. This is why he's so high. I mean, he's this high because it's simple in my mind, even though it's very difficult to rank a punter when you're up against linebackers and DBs and quarterbacks. But James Burnip does his job better than anyone else does their job. I mean, he's very likely to be the best punter in college football. Pro Football Focus says he was the best punter in college football last year, and he returns. I can give you some numbers that would blow people away. As a matter of fact, my favorite, I think everyone listening would agree, or we will come close to agreeing that J.K. Scott is probably the greatest punter in Alabama history. I think most people agree. I know I believe that. I think Luke believes that. I think most everybody listening go, yeah, J.K. Scott's probably Alabama's best punter of all time. J.K., over his 4 years at Alabama, averaged 45 yards a punt, which is an amazing number over 4 years to average 45 yards a punt. James Burnip averaged 47 yards a punt last year. James Burnip actually exceeded J.K. Scott's average by 2 full yards last year. That's amazing. Only once in J.K. Scott's 4 years did he average more yards a punt than James Burnip did last year. And again, this is Burnup on the way up. We haven't even seen Burnup's ceiling yet. This is really, he's new to punting. JK apparently had been punting since he was 3. This kid, Burnup, is just learning how to punt because his experience was in Australian rules football and rugby and these other sports me and Luke don't understand. But Burnup's improvement is incredible. I think this other number off the top of my head, and since he's just learning this, as a freshman and sophomore, Burnup had a total of 7 punts over 50 yards. That's in 2 years of punting at Alabama. 7 punts went over 50 yards. Last year alone, 23. I mean, that's a stunning number in one season. Burnup might be the most improved football player in a single year we've ever seen at Alabama. And this is the Burnup that's here to stay. I think he's going to be drafted if he has another year like he had last year. And you don't say that about many punters. And is he better than J.K. Scott? I'm not going to say. I'm going to say he's not, because J.K. Scott did it over 4 years. Burnup really just did it 1 year, his last year. But if Burnup has another leap forward, he's certainly in the argument about replacing J.K. Scott as Alabama's all-time punter. If there's another step forward, which is mind-blowing based on how good he was last year. But this is a Ray Guy favorite, first-team All-American candidate, and an NFL draftee. And that's why I have him at 6. Trust me, my roster ranking is not kind to specialists. But when you're exceptional, like Will Reichard was, James Burnip deserves the Will Reichard treatment, honestly.
Boy, you might have sold me. That 50-yard stat thing,
that's amazing.
Bananas. And Lord knows we needed it. But here's my take on it is not necessarily because I think James Burnip isn't good. I think he could win the Ray Guy Award. But I'm thinking he may not get as many opportunities. That's what I'm hoping. That's my hope.
Hope he never punts all year. Wouldn't that be great? I hope DeBoer is so cocky that when the team is boarding the flight to Wisconsin for the first road game, they're like, we're not even bringing Burnup.
Yeah.
Not even bringing him.
Burnup's got all his bags and like the plane's taking off. He's like, look at it. Like
we ain't going to come close to punting this year. We ain't even bringing the punter on the trips.
All right, Jimmy. That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with probably more countdown stuff. I want everybody to go check out Locked On Sports Today. I'm telling you, you will love this. If you're tired of all the screaming and the fussing and the feuding and the fighting, Locked On Sports Today doesn't do all that. Go check them out. Go check out Locked On Auburn if you want to see how giddy they are right now about their Big Cat weekend. Go check out Locked On SEC if you just want to catch up on everything SEC. And we're going to start having some more guests on here very shortly, some crossover stuff with Alabama opponents for the upcoming season. So we're excited about that.
Locked On Hilltoppers.
Locked On.
They're Locked On Hilltoppers.
There is a Locked On Hilltoppers. That's pretty cool.
It needs to be a Locked On Hilltoppers, at least for a week.
Yes, we would like for y'all to have a podcast for 1 week.
How about this? Let's see if I can surprise you with this. Not every Alabama fan's going to know this. Has Alabama played Western Kentucky's quarterback before?
Who is it?
Alabama has played the Western Kentucky.
Well, I knew the answer. I'm just curious who it is.
TJ Finley.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
Yeah, isn't that amazing? The former Auburn quarterback started an Alabama-Auburn game. He is Western Kentucky's quarterback, or is contending for it because they got a returning guy they're pretty high on. So I don't know that he's been officially named. But
how about this? How about what now? Boy, that's so fascinating. Alabama's first game, they could potentially play T.J. Finley, who was the quarterback for Auburn when Bryce Young made his miraculous comeback. The second game, they play South Florida, which is the team Jalen Milroe didn't get to play last year. And then the third game is just Wisconsin, which is
Tyler Van Dyke, who was associated with Alabama in the transfer portal at one point.
Yeah. God, this is so cool. I can't wait to go to Wisconsin, by the way. All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.